In another death knell for raunchy comedies at the box office, Paramount's Johnny Knoxville stunt comedy Action Point is hitting the skids in the worst way this weekend, opening to $2.2 million. That's the lowest wide-release debut of the star's career, and a major setback for the prankster whose 4 Jackass films have made the studio close to $500 million worldwide off combined budgets just north of $50 million over a 16-year period. That weekend result is even lower than Paramount's prestige misfire's last year, Mother. $7.5 million opening, and Suburbicon, $2.8 million, even though those catered to different audiences. Paramount Action Point arrives without the Jackass label because it only stars Knoxville and Chris Pontius and not the whole gang, and that's one of the reasons why the Pix fans are staying away, even though Paramount earnestly billed the comedy as from the star of Jackass in trailers. Jackass guys have been slow to make another film in the wake of member Ryan Dunn's death. Some even say that the whole stunt thing for Knoxville, 47, is getting to be too long in the tooth. Knoxville fans' per cinema score turned up at 48% last night, giving the pick a B, while Action Point overall earned a C, the lowest grade ever for a Paramount Knoxville movie. Jackass received an 2. Critics who've given his last 3 Jackass movies around a 60% fresh Rotten Tomatoes score thumbs down Action Point with a 17% Rotten score, saying that it was deflated, unfunny, and by the numbers. Bad Grandpa. It's easy to blame the previous administration for Action Point, and this comedy was greenlit in January 2017 before studio CEO Jim Giannopoulos and Motion Pictures Group President Wick Godfrey even drove on the Melrose lot. However, Knoxville's last hit for Paramount, Jackass Presents Bad Grandpa, was huge, reaping close to $152 million WW off a $15 million budget 4 years ago. Even though he's spaced his comedies apart over the last several years, Knoxville always rebounded and never grew stale. It made perfect sense why Paramount would want to do another movie with Knoxville. The budget was low on Action Point at a reported $19 million, shooting in Cape Town, South Africa, so there's not an immense solo loss going on here. But the bombing further speaks to how hard it is to launch an original R-rated raunchy comedy in this day, and the casualties continue to build up. Read The House, $8.7 million, $25.5 million, and Rough Night, $8 million, $22 million. Universal's critically respected Blockers muscled its way to a solid $20.6 million start, but slowed below a 3x multiple to $59.3 million. The Brothers Grimsby, courtesy of Sony. Another problem with Action Point was in its execution, by which a narrative was being forced upon a Jackass stunt film. Scripted by John Altschuler and Dave Krinsky and directed by Tim Kirkby, is inspired by one of the most dangerous amusement parks in America, Action Park, which operated from 1978 to 1996, employed drunk attendants, and was allegedly responsible for 6 deaths. Knoxville plays the owner of a fun danger zone in the film, with the park's livelihood threatened when a big corporate amusement park opens nearby. Jackass Spark was comprised of stunts plus pranks on real people, triggering honest reactions. Action Point was scripted without the pranks, and Jackass fans can smell the difference. This whole BO turned down with Knoxville and Action Point is reminiscent of Sacha Baron Cohen's downward trajectory with his own branded comedies. Once revered by the masses for his man-on-the-street reality character bits with Borat, $128.5 million, as the world began to recognize Cohen, he segued to more scripted character comedies, like The Dictator, $59.5 million, and The Brothers Grimsby, $6.87 million, which paled greatly next to his heyday. Action Point was a head-scratcher for both former and current Paramount execs to figure out, with the pick jumping around the release date calendar from March 23 to May 11 to, finally, this weekend. studio, at one point, considered unloading Action Point but opted to brave a theatrical release. Again, Action Point isn't a huge cash for Paramount. They had a fantastic spring with their low-budget horror pick A Quiet Place, which made $183 million domestic, over $315 million WW, and their older skewing Acquisition Book Club is putting up solid numbers with a great post-Memorial Day hold of -32% with $6.9 million in its third weekend, and will ultimately gross north of $50 million. Next up this summer for Paramount is Tom Cruise's Mission: Impossible – Fallout on July 27. In regards to Knoxville, he always split his time between his comedies and popcorn picks like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and The Dukes of Hazzard. Up next for him is the Philip Noyce crime thriller Above Suspicion, starring Emilia Clarke and Jack Huston.